Hello, welcome to Kratom Sobriety, episode 68. This is Charlie, and this is the first of a series of episodes we're going to have this summer. We're going to drop those on Wednesdays. They depart from our usual format of an interview with a quitter. I'm excited about it. We're going to be talking to some experts, scientists that study Kratom, investigative journalists, and family members who have had a loved one who died from a Kratom-related death. So please check out your feeds on Wednesdays, and hopefully the content will support your recovery. We have a couple controversial interviews, just to give you a warning. One person's going to talk a little bit about the relative merits of harm reduction in Kratom. I know we're all committed to being Kratom free. And then we have another person who actually still sells Kratom. He owns a kava bar, but he experienced Kratom addiction himself. So just look out for those. Today we have a special talk between Jacob and Decima in celebration of their 1-year anniversary. And I just want to congratulate them again. And if you can't tell by now, if it wasn't for them and their hard work, I think this podcast probably would have retired in March after a year. But they've been pulling a lot of weight since then, and they've added so much diverse perspectives and added so much to this that I'm just really grateful for them. They did make some gratuitous compliments of me towards the end of their talk, and it made me embarrassed a little bit, and I came very close to deleting it. And one of the reasons I was a little red in the face was because since I recorded this, I actually butted heads with the team a little bit, and I acted in some ways that were judgmental and not so chill. And I guess that's what amends are for, and nobody is perfect. And in this episode, we're going to wrap up with a note from JP, and he's going to talk about whataboutisms when it comes to Kratom discussions. The first thing, whenever you're talking about the safety or the merit, universally they go, what about alcohol? What about nicotine? What about Tylenol? This is a well-known logical fallacy. So, we can talk about Kratom alone, the plus and minuses of it, and we don't have to drag in a bunch of other subjects. So hang on. Here's the talk with Jacob and Decima.
Hey, everybody. It's Decima here with Jacob. How are you doing tonight, Jacob?
I'm doing good.
It is going to be a different type of interview tonight, you guys.
We do, that's right.
Yeah, so Charlie had the idea. This was all Charlie. He said he pitted us against one another and told us to bounce questions off of one another. So tonight we're going to go back and forth with these questions that neither one of us have seen yet. So they are a surprise.
Like a debate, but more fun.
A lot more fun than that.
A lot more fun than
Hopefully
that.
more uplifting and inspiring.
I will hope so.
Okay, so I am just going to get my questions ready. So who should go first?
All right, I think, why don't you go first? We'll alternate, and then see if we have any of the same questions. I bet you one will probably be the same. You never know.
Okay, I will start with an easy one. So so the first one I want to start with, Jacob. Who has been your biggest cheerleader and supporter through this journey?
That is a great question. Who has been my greatest cheerleader and supporter through this journey? I would probably say my wife, to be honest. We've been together now for 13 years. Not married that long, but a long time. At least a long time for me. And I put up with a lot of shit, but she's very much been a cheerleader about all things recovery and super supportive and all those things. And probably second, shout out to one of my best friends that lives in New York City that also has been a very big supporter and checks in with me frequently and stuff like that. So yeah, that's been really good.
That's awesome. Especially knowing that a lot of relationships have been torn apart by Kratom. So to know that your partner has been your biggest supporter, that's really great to hear.
Let me ask you one of mine. And since you asked me an easy one, maybe I'll ask you a hard one. So Charlie and I had this debate in one of the intros. I don't remember what's that. It wasn't a debate. It was more of like a discussion. But we had this discussion in one of the intros. I don't remember which episode around. Would you ever recommend someone use Kratom in any circumstance for anything? We talked about harm reduction, this or that. My question to you, if someone was like using hard drugs like fentanyl or heroin or something, and they were like dead set against anything else, but was thinking about using Kratom, what would you say to them?
Is a good one. So, honestly, I'm going to say that my recommendation to anybody, no matter what, is if you can avoid using Kratom at all costs. If you can avoid using it, do not use it. Is there an instance I don't think I'd ever recommend, say, hey,
Yeah.
you should use Kratom, but a time that I would like, it's not up to me to be okay with it either. You know what I'm saying?
I know. It's a hard question. I think it's a hard question.
It really is. But I guess a time that I guess if you want to quote unquote say I would be okay with it would be like if somebody absolutely is in chronic pain, maybe, and they are able to regulate their use. If you're not an addict, maybe things like that. Yeah, but I would not say I would want to recommend Kratom to anybody. Nope.
Yeah, me either. I think I'd be similar. If someone was like, my breaking point was like if someone was like dead set against any sort of other treatment, and I would include methadone or Suboxone over Kratom, to be honest. I would recommend those over Kratom any day. But anyways, if someone was like dead set to get used doing anything and they were on fentanyl and were close to dying and that was like the only thing they were willing to do, I would probably say go for it. Just because I think the chances of something else terrible happening, and even then it would be super reluctant.
And with a lot of warnings. God, that was a good question. Okay, so now we're going to move on to question number 2. So this is actually one I'm going to go ahead and ask because this is one of the ones I've been wanting to ask you the most. What has been the toughest part of your journey this year? Hardest.
What was hardest for me is like Kratom was just the last thing in a very long list of shit that I have ended up addicted to, dependent on, had a problem with. The hardest thing for me this year was just realizing that there's nothing else out there. It was hard and it was like eye-opening and eventually good at the same time, but originally it was like there's nothing else I can go to. I can't go pick up drinking or like when I'm having a bad day, or I can't abuse medical marijuana or like whatever it is. I know that's it. Actually just finally getting myself to the point where I was like, okay, now I'm like really done. This is it. There's no more going to try some other substance. Or someone had asked me if I ever tried kava, and I was like, maybe I should try it. I was like, no, I'm just not gonna. And I don't think there's anything wrong with kava, by the way. I think it's probably perfectly healthy. But for me, it was just like I just can't. I just know I shouldn't.
Absolutely. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's hard to adjust to living to life on life's terms, but like you said, in the end, it's so worth it. Absolutely. I relate for sure.
Yeah,
Love that.
It was an interesting one.
It is hard. Raw dogging reality is what we call it. And I was so scared of it, but it's actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Me too. It took a while to get there, but once I got there, it was a lot easier once you get in the right mind frame. This is my second question. It's similar but different. So I'm just curious for you, what was like the hardest thing to let go of when quitting Kratom? Is there anything like you held on to that maybe you did some work to get past, or like something that maybe you just was hard for you to get past or let go?
I guess my gut instinct, my first reaction is to say that morning ritual of needing something to get going in the morning. I want to say I don't need that at all anymore. And that has become my favorite thing, that I don't need that anymore. But in the beginning, I was replacing that habit, even though it was super healthy stuff I was replacing it with. I was still like having to, I don't know, that ritual of getting up in the morning and dosing and waiting for it to make you feel better. And you have to have that before you go do your things. And that was really tough for me to adjust to. But I always wanted to be able to do that, to just jump out of bed, grab your water and go. And that's where I am today. But it was so fucking tough. It really was.
Yeah, that kind of ties back into the question you just asked me, and like for my thing about being the last thing, it is tough to
Yeah,
do
but
that.
it's so freeing now to just get up and go. Or if you have somewhere to be, you don't have to think about getting up first and taking your kratom with you. It's amazing.
Yeah, like I'm not a morning person, and more recently, my spouse had a procedure, and we have a dog, and I live in a pretty populated area, so like I have to walk her. I can't just let her out in the backyard or something like that, and like so I have to get up early in the morning to do it, and like I could, if I was still on kratom, I would be so fucking miserable. But now, like, I don't love it, by the way, but I don't hate it. Like, I'm not mad about it. It's fine. I get up, I do my thing. It's all good. Which would have been it would have been more angry if I had to do kratom, I'm sure.
Man, those dogs, though, my dog is actually one of the reasons I walk every day. Hey, whatever it takes, it takes. Okay, is it my turn now?
It is your turn.
Okay.
Question 3.
We are on question 3. Okay, for question 3, this one is going to be similar or tied in. Looking back over the year and your entire journey and the whole process, is there anything that you would do differently? And if so, what?
Yes. The thing I would do differently is I literally debated for a year about getting on medicated assisted treatment. And in that year, I think I relapsed and quit kratom cold turkey like 5 or 6 times. And the year before that, I did it like 4 or 5 times too. I didn't think about getting on medicated assisted treatment at that time, but I just kept relapsing for 2 years. I absolutely resisted doing that for a number of reasons. The stigma surrounding medicated assisted treatment drugs, particularly Suboxone, the just like bad and quite honestly just wrong information that I read everywhere, and I constantly read everywhere, and I just have even stopped trying to correct because there's no correcting it. I don't think at this point. It was made out to be like this absolute hellish prison that like if you do, your life is over, and it's been nothing like that. It's literally just when you take medication, it's like taking a heart medication pill. It's like nothing. So I'm not trying to minimize it. I know a lot goes into that, and it is a powerful substance to take to get off addiction, but I would have not resisted that as much, and I probably would have done that sooner because don't think I needed to change something, and it was clear what I was doing wasn't going to work to get off the shit.
Wow. Yeah, I'm like actually so glad to hear that you have no regrets about it, and that if you would have had less fear, you would have went ahead and done it sooner. So I'm just really glad to hear that it's working out for you like that, because you're right. There's so much fucking stigma, and it probably stops a lot of people.
I do too. There's also there seems to be really prevalent with kratom this, if you do medicaid assisted treatment, particularly if you use Suboxone, you have to essentially do a short-term taper. That's like the most prevalent thing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just want everybody to know that if you do like just Google short-term versus long-term Suboxone, literally just Google that, you'll see a bunch of different medical studies from like legit publications. The statistics show that your chances of relapse with short-term Suboxone tapers are very high compared to staying on it for a few months to a year or so or more, or however long you need to be on it. So that's the only thing I'd like people to think about is I don't want to dissuade anybody from that, but don't think that
do your
because
research.
Of the stigma or the fear, that's what you have to do just because that's what everybody's saying to do in all these groups, because none of those people are doctors. Neither am I. So don't listen to me. Listen to someone that knows what they're talking about.
But absolutely, for sure. The doctor does have all the information, though, and they can definitely help you with your Suboxone journey.
They can. And to be fair, like some doctors are just in it for the money, and there is some of that. So you have to do your research, find a good provider, anything else. Let me see. My third question for you, it might be an easy one, maybe not so heady or tough. Did you ever think you'd be a podcaster? And two-parter, how are you enjoying it?
Loud, resounding no. No, never, ever thought I'd be maybe TikTok, because I went viral on TikTok and I have this thing in my head where I think I'm so funny to my damn self. You know what I mean? But no. With a podcast, no, but I am absolutely loving it because I guess I should have known because I listen to podcasts, but so many people listen to podcasts and it just reaches such a wide range of people, and so many people are being able to get the help and hear that they're not alone. And it's not anything I ever considered, but I absolutely love being a part of it. I'm honored, and it has helped my sobriety in so many ways, for sure.
Yeah, I would say my answer would be the same if you asked me that question. And for our listeners, I think what we're both hitting on here is like when you're ready and you're comfortable and you've got some sober time, like when you do service work, it's not only like
Yeah.
good to give back, it will help you just as, in my opinion, just as much as
Oh, yeah.
treatment or going to meetings. It gives you that purpose.
I think anybody that is of service in this community would absolutely agree with you on that for sure. I know I do. Okay, so we are on
4, got 2 more to
question
go.
4. Okay, question 4. This one is lighthearted.
Cool.
This should be easy, but maybe not. What is your absolute favorite thing about being kratom free?
There's so many things.
I know, right? Everything.
My absolute favorite thing is not waking up and feeling like absolute trash because I was so dependent on it at the end that I literally couldn't get a good night's sleep. I couldn't. And I felt like I had the flu with someone beat me up the day before every single morning, and just not having to feel that is probably my number one. My number two is just not having to, it's gross. To be honest with you, in hindsight, none of the extracts taste good. The powder's disgusting. If you take capsules, by the time you like get to the point where you're listening to this podcast, you're taking fistfuls of them at a time.
Yep.
There's just nothing about it that isn't gross to me.
Oh my God. Look, somebody posted in our Signal chat today. They posted a video of they were pouring a bunch of kratom down the toilet and flushing it. And the powder's like flying everywhere. I'm like waving my hand. I'm smelling it, tasting it through the phone. Oh my God. Oh, you just can't forget it.
I'll never forget this. I was on a trip somewhere and it was one of those where I'm done. I'm not buying anymore. And I was like 2 days into it and I was absolutely like just out of my mind, like in withdrawal on this trip. And I found some place that had kratom, but they only had the raw powder. So like I had this teaspoon and like this bottle of water, and I'm like in my car trying to like jam this stuff down my throat, and I just spit it up everywhere. And it's just this green cloud of disgusting mess everywhere. I don't ever want to, like, that alone is enough to make me say, nope, never again.
It has happened to, I think, all of us at least once, or nearly choking on. There's just so many ways to die from kratom. Dumb ways to die.
So many dumb ways to die. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So I've got my fourth one for you.
Okay, my turn.
It is a similar one, but maybe a little bit different. My question for you is, was there any like unexpected benefit or thing in your life that happened that you didn't expect to happen as a result of kratom that's been overly positive, or like one thing in particular that stands out of a couple?
And it comes to mind right away, my relationship with my husband. Hey, surprise, what do you know? It's me. I'm the problem. I didn't know that. I honestly did not know. I'm not even trying to be silly. I literally had one foot out the door and thought that he was the absolute worst. And it turns out he's pretty fucking amazing. And I was really, you guys know, you know how it is if you're listening, how we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, and ever since I've gotten my shit together, it has just been like, it's a whole new relationship. I'm also lucky to have a partner that we almost didn't make it. We almost didn't, and it was all me. It really was all me. But yeah, that has been the surprise and amazing, absolutely amazing benefit for sure.
It's funny that you mentioned that it's all me thing. The first time I started going to therapy in like my late 20s, I remember like I'd seen 3 or 4 therapists and they all gave me like similar advice. And I was like, these people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I remember I was telling my mom this and she's like, do you ever think maybe you're the problem? No, it couldn't be me. I just saw 3 people that gave me good advice that I won't take, but no, I'm not the problem.
Never. Absolutely not. That was a great question. This brings us to our fifth question. Mine is, where's my fifth question? Question number 5. This one, I want you to think like more near future, not long term. What are your near future goals? What are you trying to accomplish now? What's next for Jacob?
I have a couple. The first one is I've been working with my doctor and I told her I wanted to get off. We had a plan that was like get to a year, then we'll figure out next steps for my medicated assisted treatments. Got to a year a couple months ago and I've slowly started tapering. I'm doing like the slowest taper you could imagine just because why not? I don't have any reason not to. So my goal is to, by the end of the year, be off of medicated assisted treatment and completely sober, if you will. Not that I pretty much think I'm sober now, but really, truly done with that. But I'm also like, I'm approaching it with like grace. So if I get to a milligram or something like that, and I'm like, it takes me 2 months or it takes me longer than I thought it would because I want to be comfortable, I'm not going to rush it. I have no reason to. So that's one goal. Another goal is I want to be better about time management like that. So you may have noticed we send a lot of like messages back and forth for planning or talking or just to help each other out between Decima, Charlie, and I. And you guys may have noticed like sometimes on the weekends I might not respond till like later in the day or that. That's just because I've been like consciously saying I'm not gonna spend less time on my phone and go outside or I'm gonna do this or that. I'm trying to, and I'm very bad about. I'm good about that for a week, and then I'm like I just fall back into bad habits. So one of my goals is to like actually set some boundaries with technology and stuff and stay with it.
That sounds awful. I'm sorry. No, I get it. Charlie's doing the same thing and I get it why people do it. I guess I'm not there yet. I just love it too much. I'm addicted to technology.
Yeah, I am too, in a certain degree. There's just sometimes where I feel like obligated to say something in like a forum or like a group I'm in, and I'm just going to say something that probably everybody already knows, and do they really need my opinion? Probably not. So maybe I'll just save up my energy. But yeah, I think those are like, I have a bunch of other things, but those are the two that really come to mind.
I love it. I'm doing the same thing with my Vivitrol, by the way. I'm playing
Nice.
it by ear and I'm not going to have any expectations. I'm just going to do what I need to do.
Yeah, I thought about it. If it was another medical condition, that's how I would treat it. Like, why should I be any different with this one? Because at the end of the day, it is like a medical, physical problem. Yeah.
Yep.
So my fifth and final question for you
Here we go.
is, so we talked a little bit about some of the challenges and things like that. If you had to pick the most positive change that came about that from Kratom for you now that you're off it, what would be the most positive thing that it's brought to your life, just not being on Kratom anymore?
Oh my goodness, that's like you, everything, right? So much. It really is. There's so much, but I would say the peace in my home and my life and my ability to handle stress and hard things like life. I don't freak out like I used to on Kratom. I had a lot of rage and I was really angry.
Too.
Yeah. I would start my day yelling and stuff and I don't do that anymore. So I would say that's probably one of the best benefits. And then I'm always going to say just being able to get up in the morning and go or leave my house and go without having to depend on something, like just not having the physical shackles of a substance controlling my body, not having the cold sweats because I woke up too late. And like you said, not even being able to sleep through the night, like that physical bondage is gone. And that was the worst, just that fucking physical bondage, man. So I would say those two things.
This isn't a question, but this is one thing I wanted to mention to you. Remember we did that, like you were the supplement advocate and I was the skeptic. I wanted to tell you that someone had recommended some vitamin thing to me that was like supposed to help with medicated assisted treatment, and I was getting these like sweaty side effects now that it's warm out.
Ooh.
So I tried it, and I actually stuck with it for a couple weeks, and it worked. So I'm no
Oh.
longer so skeptical on supplements. So you helped me change my mind on that. So thank you.
Nice to hear, because that's one of my biggest things about supplements is you have to take them for long enough for them to
Yeah,
actually work,
I think that's where I went wrong in the past. I always could. It's the addict in me. I always want that immediate result,
Instant
which is the damn.
gratification. Yeah. So I actually have a bonus question
All
for you.
right.
And
Okay.
I meant to say earlier, this one is going to be about Charlie. And I wanted to say earlier when we were talking about the podcast, like how appreciative, Charlie, I know you're going to hear this. Thank you so much for bringing us on board for this project,
Definitely.
because it's just been life changing. So my bonus question is, you actually got to meet Charlie in person. What
I
is Charlie
did.
like in person?
What is Charlie like in person? This is gonna sound cliche, but he is pretty much exactly like you would expect when you see him on camera and you talk to him in a personal setting. I think our guests will know this. Like when you're gearing up to get started on your interview or after the interview, there's usually a little bit of banter with whoever's doing that, whether that's Decima, Charlie, or myself. And Charlie's very personable.
Fair.
He's, I don't know how to say this other than just saying it. He's a little like hippie aesthetic, like with the whole way he dressed and stuff like that. So it was very on brand, but it was great to get to spend some time with him. I went to near where he lives for a music festival, different type of music than what he's into, but he actually there was a performance by like a jazzish like jamming ensemble thing that he took me to after we had dinner that I would have never gone to. That was awesome. Charlie, thank you for that. I think I told you this already, but that was a really good time, and I wouldn't have got to see that without you.
So cool. He seems to me like he would be so chill.
Very
Um,
chill.
I will say one thing I love most about Charlie is he is like the least judgmental person. He is the most open-minded. Like he's unbiased in almost all situations. He at least makes an attempt to be. I just love those things. Is it kiss the boss's ass night? But yeah, I do want to give Charlie some love too, because he also has a year under his belt and we
He
didn't get
does.
to throw questions at him. So
He did, and his year came before ours, so he's a little bit ahead of the pack. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's been really great to get to work with him and to get to work with you. It's interesting because we all live in different geographic locations.
We're all so different.
We're
We all
all
come from
different,
different
yeah,
walks of
different,
life.
yeah, all that. But I think we all have a really good kind of connection and banner. My bonus question for you is
Oh,
probably an easy one, but I'm just curious because I know we used to ask this question a lot. What type of music do you like to listen to?
oh God. I listen to everything, but when I
Okay,
first get in, everybody says that though, right? But
they do.
I literally mean it. Yeah. But I know you want to know what I like. When I get in
No,
the
no.
car, when I get in the car, I'm blasting like the most some horror or insane clown
Okay,
posse, like this mix of gangster rap, like
okay.
heavy thrasher, like as loud as I can blast it. Yes. But my very first concert, and if I could only pick one thing to listen to for the rest of my life, it would be the Cranberries. That was my first concert,
That
and
was
I've
your
been
first
loving.
concert? Okay,
Yes,
that's cool.
yes, I love the Cranberries.
My first concert was Rage Against the Machine and Wu
Oh,
Tang.
oh,
So
good
there
one.
you go. It was amazing. It was a very
Yes, good
interesting
one.
and different crowd that they brought together, but everybody got along. Right.
I would
All
love
right.
to have been at that one.
Yeah,
Man, this has been a lot of
it's been
fun.
great.
It's been
Yeah.
different. Yeah,
Cool to do this, and I enjoyed it.
absolutely. I can't wait to do it again when we have 2 years under our belt.
2 years, and maybe we'll do a three-way with Charlie or
He's
get
got to get
some
it on
former
the
guests or
list.
something, do a panel. That could be interesting. All right. Thank you for chatting. And yeah, I think
Thank you.
this should be an interesting episode. So have a good evening.
I'm JP, and today we're going to tackle a logical fallacy that's been making waves in discussion about a kratom. Specifically, we'll explore the fallacy of whataboutisms and how it's used to compare kratom to more dangerous drugs in an effort to legitimize its safety. Let's dive in. Whataboutism. It's a term you might not hear every day, but it's a rhetorical device that's all too common in debates and discussions. Whataboutism deflects criticisms by pointing to the issues of other, often unrelated substances or situations. The idea that because other things are worse, the subject at hand is less concerning. When it comes to kratom, whataboutism is frequently employed to argue for its safety. You might hear statements like, "But what about alcohol and tobacco? They cause far more deaths and harm than kratom." On the surface, these comparisons seem to make sense. After all, a Center of Disease Control and Prevention reports that alcohol-related deaths number approximately 9,500 annually in the United States, and tobacco use accounts for about 480,000 deaths each year. In contrast, the number of deaths directly associated with kratom is significantly lower. However, this comparison is inherently flawed. The dangers of alcohol and tobacco do not mitigate the risks posed by kratom. Each substance must be evaluated on its own merits and dangers. While the relative harm argument may hold some superficial appeal, it neglects the unique pharmacological effects, potential for addiction, and health risks of kratom. Now, let's talk about the reality of kratom-related deaths. The notion that kratom is entirely benign is dispelled by documented cases of fatalities. Although the number of deaths attributed solely to kratom is debated, the presence of its active alkaloids, metragenine and 7-hydroxymetragenine, in post-mortem toxicology reports highlight its potential for harm. According to the Food and Drug Administration, there have been numerous cases where kratom was found to be primary cause of death, often respiratory depression, cardiac arrest, or other severe psychological reactions. These deaths, while fewer in number compared to those caused by more widely used substances, are nonetheless significant. The fact that kratom-related deaths occur at all indicates that the substance is not without risks. Moreover, the presence of the adulterants or contaminants in kratom products, inconsistent potency, and lack of standardized dosing further exacerbate the potential dangers. By employing whataboutism, kratom advocates often downplay these risks, creating a false sense of security. This tactic diverts attention from the need for rigorous scientific research, standardized regulations, and public awareness about kratom's potential dangers. Instead of fostering a nuanced understanding of kratom, whataboutism promotes a binary perspective where kratom is viewed as either entirely safe or wholly dangerous depending on one's stance. A balanced and informed discussion on kratom requires moving beyond whataboutism. Recognizing the legitimate concerns about kratom does not necessitate ignoring the dangers of other substances. Rather, it calls for an objective evaluation of kratom based on scientific evidence and public health considerations. This includes acknowledging both the potential benefits and risks of kratom, advocating for a standardized quality control measures, and supporting comprehensive research into its pharmacology and toxicology. So, where does this leave us? The use of whataboutism in the debate over kratom's safety is a distraction that hinders productive discussion and informed decision-making. By comparing kratom to more dangerous drugs, proponents obscure the genuine risks associated with its use. A responsible approach to kratom must involve a thorough evidence-based examination of its effects, regulation to ensure consumer safety, and public education on its potential hazards. Only then can we navigate the complexities of kratom use and regulation with the clarity and seriousness that it demands. Thanks for joining us on our little segment here. If you found today's episode enlightening, please subscribe and share it with others who might find benefit from this discussion. Stay informed, and as usual, stay kratom free.